are on part 2 of a sermon series called Asking the Tough Questions. I kind of wanted to do this series, and then I kind of didn't, right? Like, I don't mind bringing up the elephant in the room, but it's not like something I wake up like excited to do. Like, sweet, let's see how many people we can piss off today. You know what I mean? Like that's not something I'm like, yeah, let's go for it. But at the same time, I've done this long enough to kind of go, I'm kind of comfortable doing it now. And so this is just one of those things where it's like, I don't know if that's a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's a good thing. And so we're just trying to answer really tough questions that I know people actually have in the world, but we're kind of too afraid to bring them up. They'll get talked about like with close friends, maybe around a dinner table. Honestly, maybe if you had a couple extra drinks in you and you got like a little bit of a truth serum going, right? That kind of stuff. It's a real thing. It's what I call alcohol, just truth serum, right? Like it's just what I call it. And so we just talk about this stuff in real world. And so last week we spent 35-ish minutes talking about suicide and like, can you go to heaven if you commit suicide, and like all the ins and outs of all that stuff. And I don't know if I left more questions than answers, but I tried. And so I'm going to tell you right now, before we're going to do what we're going to talk about next week, we're going to talk about human sexuality. So if you've got a teenager and you're like, I don't want them to hear about it, they can go downstairs with Tina. She doesn't know that yet, but they can. But I'll be completely honest with you, we're not going to talk about anything that any middle schooler doesn't already hear in the park or talk about themselves way already. Like, it's just in church world, we don't like to talk about it, but everybody's talking about it way deeper and more discussions than what you probably realize or even want to admit as a parent. But that's for next week. That's for next week. This week, we're going to talk about politics. Yay! Aren't you glad it's not an election season? Sweet. Here's what I won't do. I'm not going to tell you to vote for Democrats or Republicans, okay? We're not going to tell you how to vote today. But what we are going to try to do is how to deal with it. Because most of the time when we talk about this stuff, people aren't asking for advice like, who do I vote for? It's, how do I figure this? How do I navigate this? Right? How do I navigate this? Because if we are really, truly honest with ourselves, we are living in a culturally, politically divided society. Whether or not we like to deal with it or admit it or not. I talk to people who, well, a lot of times I talk to people who are like in the previous generations. And they'll flat out tell you, like, it wasn't like this. Now, does social media add to it? Did the internet add to all this stuff? I'm sure there's lots of different factors. But there is this today a memorial service for a young man he spent his life just trying to have conversations. And because of his views on things, he was killed for it. So when people are like, it's not a culture, like we are a culturally divided political society, right? And we have to figure out how do we navigate all of these things. Another sermon that I'm looking at doing, and maybe in the series, is what happened. Like, is the world coming to an end? So, in the middle of me studying all this stuff, Matthew 24:10 says this. It says, "At that time, many will turn away from the faith, and will betray and hate each other." I'm like, that's a pretty good idea, because we have a lot of people that have this idea that we should hate each other. It just feels like the resentment and the anger and the animosity is continuing to build and build and build and build. I think Christians are to blame. Because here's what I mean. Here's why. Because we do not handle political discourse with a Christ-centered attitude. We don't. We don't. We get really mad. We get really angry. And we're going to walk through all of this stuff today. A lot of times people outside of church think Christianity is kind of crazy and kind of radical. And sometimes it is. But it's radical not in the ways that probably we get called radical for. Matthew chapter 5, verses 43 and 44 says this. It says, you've heard it said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Those are the words of Jesus, not anybody else. We want an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Right? Don't believe me. Get involved in youth sports. And you will see parents who think their kid is getting gypped or perceived of getting gypped when they're 9 years old. Mama bear comes out and Christian is gone in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Now extrapolate that out in all of our political stuff and society and everything else, and it gets really messy really fast. Because what we want revenge, but God gets justice. God will get his justice. We get revenge. So when we respond in political situations, we just want revenge. But you cannot read the words of Jesus and come away thinking anything else, that he demands for people to let go of our anger, our bitterness, hostility, and more. See, our issue is not with Jesus' teachings. Our issue is that we don't follow Jesus' teachings when we call ourselves Christians. That's the issue. It's like when we talk about politics or election seasons, we switch to like different people. We haven't handed out voting guides in years. I've like, whether it's local or national or anything else, I don't go there and still won't, because there's plenty of those voting guides and you can get them anywhere and everywhere. And I've legit had people go, I'm leaving and I'm taking my money with me unless you hand them out. And I go, there's the door, have a good day. And it's the way it always will be. Here's what we have to realize. The Bible is a mirror, not a window. And we want to treat the Bible as a window into other people's lives, not a mirror into our own. So today, hopefully, we can remind ourselves and remember that the Bible is a mirror into our own lives, not a mirror or a window, especially at night. You know what I'm talking about. You driving by? What are they up to? Just don't ever drive by my house. You can probably hear us from the freaking road. That's true. That is a true statement. I know. I've heard myself or heard us. Anyways. Oh, gosh. We should probably just end service right now so I don't say anything else. It's really scary. Like normally my wife can kind of keep me in check because she's been up here for the last couple of years, but now with her doing kids church, you never know what's going to be said. She's always like, excuse me? Thursday rolls around and she's like, someone just told me you said, and I'm like, oops. My bad. Jesus taught how we're supposed to act. We just don't follow it. We just don't follow it. Jesus always chose humility, sacrifice. Always. Even in death on the cross. He's dying on the cross after being whipped, beaten, and everything else. And he says, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. And because of that, this morning we're joining with they say about 2.5 billion people that have gotten up across the globe and have come to a church and have worshiped Jesus together. That's awesome. That's because of his humility that he lives with. You ever realize how guilty we are holding grudges? Christians, this is. When I say we, I mean Christians. You don't believe me? Watch somebody. If you ever, don't do it. You can do it in your own house, but we'll blame the in-laws. Can we blame the in-laws? Okay, we'll blame the in-laws. They're fun to blame, right? They're fun to blame, right? So if you ever go to your in-laws and you ever see someone watch TV and they're yelling and screaming, they're holding on to something, right? They're holding on to something. Some news anchor gets on, some political analyst gets on, and they're yelling and screaming at whatever it is. They're mad about the debate 16 days later, right? They're still worked up. They're holding on to something. That's the only reason they're angry and bitter. That's the only reason they're yelling, is they're holding on to something in their life. It's like somehow we got this idea that it is our moral duty to be offended and mad about somebody else's point of view about something that we've never met. Ephesians chapter 4 kind of gets into this a little bit. Here's what we're going to do. Ephesians chapter 4, verses 20 through 27, and then 31 and 32. It really dives into this, and this is what it says. That, however, is not the way of life you learned when you heard about Christ and were taught in him accordance with the way, the truth that is in Jesus. You were taught with regard to your former way of life to put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and to be made new in the attitude of your minds, and to put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness. Therefore, each of you must put off a falsehood and speak truthfully to your neighbor, for we are all members of one body. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you are still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. So what are we supposed to get rid of specifically? Verses 31 and 32 spell it out. Get rid of some of our bitterness, some of our rage, some of our anger, brawling, and some of our slander. I wanted to say some. Wouldn't that be nice? Give us like outs once in a while. Like I can get really ticked off once in a while. No, it says all bitterness, all rage, all anger, all brawling, all slander, along with every form of malice. Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ, God, forgave you. This is not how we would describe how Christians handle political discourse. We get mad, we get angry. We really do. In an attempt to call ourselves righteous. Here's what Paul's understanding. It goes way deeper than what he's addressing. Like, our lives go way deeper than just church attendance or religious ceremonies. He's digging into our souls. And Paul knows what a rotten soul looks like. Right? If you know anything about the Bible, if you don't, it's totally fine. Paul, his name used to be Saul. He was legit the guy in charge of like jailing Christians, murdering Christians. Like, are they good enough to just be persecuted? Are they bad enough to get thrown in jail? What do we do? Do we just hang them for like everybody else to see? He was that guy in charge of telling people what to do. And so he knows all about what it means to have a rotten soul. Now, he met Jesus and everything changed. But I think too much stuff doesn't change enough in our lives when we meet Jesus. Here's what I get a lot. And maybe you've never gotten this. And if you haven't, great, but here's what I get a lot. I hear we need a righteous anger. Jesus flipped the tables in the temples. I can get mad and angry and yell and scream at the TV. Am I kind of generalizing things a little bit? Sure. I can get real specific if you'd like. I hear this stuff a lot. And it's just bad theology, right? It's bad theology. I want people to take the lead. In fact, it's like my biggest gripe. I'm not always good at it, right? I'm not perfect. I put my shoes on just like you do, right? And so I can catch myself in this stuff. But my biggest gripe against leadership has always been the inability to make decisions. Like, it is the number one thing. Because leadership is where things actually change. And it's kind of why one of the reasons why we structured our church in the way we did is like, I want people in our church to like have time to work their way up in whatever, to accomplish goals and dreams and work their way up in jobs and systems and everything else. But if you spend 6 days a week at church, then you'll never be able to do that kind of stuff. It's just the way our society works. But when we do step up and do something, it has to come from a place of a broken heart and a deep burden. It cannot be fueled by rage and anger. And too many times when we find ourselves doing something, it is fueled by rage and anger. In the book of Lamentations, the prophet Jeremiah was broken and weeping over the condition of his country. I don't see a lot of Christians getting on their knees and praying for the condition of their school system or their city or their politicians. Like, we can complain about the mayor all we want, but when's the last time we ever prayed for him? Do you even know his name or her name? Probably not. But we can complain a lot about governor this or president this. But when you find yourselves with a broken heart and a burden, it goes, God, you got to do something. It is a cop-out to use Jesus as a temple. Because here's the deal. God is allowed wrath. We are not. Because God can control his wrath. We can't. Okay, God is a sinless, perfect God. He can control anything and everything that comes out of him. We don't control everything that comes out of us. So trying to compare ourselves to what Jesus did is like, that isn't a very great example. Because our character is not sinless, so it can't be trusted. God's character is sinless. It can be trusted. So when we go, of course my anger is righteous, because we always think our anger is righteous. right? But we always try to justify losing our you-know-what on a people. But it's just not. Proverbs 16:2 says this. All a person's ways seem pure to them, but motives are weighed by the Lord. Of course you're going to say that your way is the right way. Of course. God knows the truth. God knows the truth. Grace is not for the deserving. I don't deserve God's grace, either do you, but we get it. And if we get God's grace, we have to give God's grace as well. And we don't like to give out God's grace to people. No one is deserving. You see, anger is easy, guys. Anger is easy. It is easy for me to get angry. It is easy. Okay? If the Packers lose to the Browns, there's going to be some people with their TVs broken this afternoon. Because we're idiots. Like, let's just face it. Like, that's a real thing. People care way too much. Oh my gosh, the Badgers lost yesterday. You would have thought the world came to an end because now they want dudes fired and this and that, and they want millions of dollars being spent and everything. Over what? People you're never going to meet? Like, we get really worked up about stuff. Really worked up about stuff. So anger is easy. It's our default setting. But love and forgiveness is not. It's unnatural. Love, forgiveness, it's unnatural just to let things go. It's a radically different way that Jesus calls us and tells us to live. It's radically different. Radically different. Christianity is completely different than what the world says. James 1 says this, Dear brothers and sisters, take note. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Because human anger does not produce the righteousness that God desires. Therefore, get rid of all moral filth and evil, so that prevalent and humbly accept the word planted in you, which can save you. Colossians 7:8 says this, You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived. You once weren't a Christian, but now you are. But now you must rid yourself of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips. You used to do this, and now you do this because of Jesus. That's really hard because there's no wiggle room. It wasn't, which I wanted to say, when your kid listens to you, you don't get mad. But when they don't listen to you after 5 or 6 times, you're allowed to snap because that's what I'm good at doing. Because I'm just a normal person. Right? And you're like, we all have tipping points. And we want to excuse our tipping points for not following the Bible. But God doesn't give us outs. Aren't you glad for his grace and his forgiveness? Because I sure as heck am. But it's clear that God has called people who call themselves Christians to act differently. And our political discourse and our political issues have to be included in this. It's like we have this justified anger in election cycles. And if we think we do, or if you think it's okay, we're just delusional. Listen, the world never came to an end. Right? 10 years-ish ago, when President Trump first ran for office, there was people on both sides who were like, the world's coming to an end. This is going to be the worst thing ever. 4 years later, the election was stolen. The world's coming to an end. And we're still here. 4 years later, the world's coming to an end. He's back. And we're still here. And we're still in debt. And we're still complaining about the same stuff we have since I've been an adult. So the world's not going to come to an end. And it's and we still need to figure out how we navigate these waters. Christians should always, always, always have a higher motivation. We should have something that drives us. There should be a better way forward than just joining the crowd of yelling and screaming and being frustrated. We can recognize the injustices. We can recognize the lies. We can recognize all these things. But it all has to go back to we are supposed to have a personal relationship with the God of the universe, the creator that created us. And he loves us and cares about us, and he died for our sins, and we should strive to push that for other people. That should always be our motivating factor. Look what 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 14 says. It says, "For Christ's love compels us because we are convinced that one died for all." That's what should push us. That Jesus Christ died for every single person that has ever existed. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. People in America, people in Africa, people in China, and North Korea, and the Middle East, and anywhere you can possibly think of. That should compel us. How much he loves human beings. We can and should protect the vulnerable and the defenseless, but we can do it without rage. There is an enemy. It is not the other side of the political aisle. The Bible is very clear that your enemy is not people. Your enemy is Satan. Like that, he's a real being. It's a real thing. He came to kill, steal, and destroy, and he's doing a pretty freaking good job at it, but God's also doing a better job at saving people too. And then Micah 6:8 says this: "Seek justice, love mercy, and walk humbly." But we kind of have a backwards view of what motivates us. Because here's what we do. Here's what we do. We recognize the wrong. Yay! We get really angry. Then our anger motivates us to do something. So even if we're doing it, our actions are with the wrong motives. And no wonder we are really ineffective at getting anything accomplished. Because we're just angry, mad people yelling at the opposite side. And we lose focus on what's wrong. Because God does care about our motives. God does care about our motives. This is so true. This is so true. Just have kids. You will see parents freaking out. No, I'm dead serious about the dumbest stuff. Like Billy's 9, it'll be okay. Like, I hate to, because I'm in the world of youth sports, but it is amazing till people think how crazy he gets. And it's the same way with like chess and band. I've heard some band stories and I'm like, woof, I'm glad my kids aren't in band. Why? Because it's just, we get mad, we get angry. He was done wrong. So-and-so's knows, it was this so-and-so's uncle and this so-and-so's knows this and blah, blah, and all this stuff. And I'm like, welcome to the real world, y'all. It sucks. Just keep going. But can I also tell you, though, anger and actions are vastly different. Because there's a new term in the world. You guys want a new term? This is a real thing. I didn't make it up. It's called slacktivism. This is a real term. It's called slacktivism. This is when you follow a page, you raise a commotion, you yell about something, you post in all caps. And you never do anything about it. You get really worked up. My kid never gets playing time. Well, he isn't showing up for practice in 3 weeks. But you are. Actually, you're probably like this. You're telling everybody. We like to get people worked up in a tizzy and then never do anything concrete about it. You know what's interesting is this has been going on in church world for centuries, decades. I don't know about centuries, but decades. And I'll be completely honest with you. We haven't had any of this in a long time, which is so awesome. But when we first got here, this was like the culture of the place. I actually talked to somebody this week, and I was like, I haven't seen him in 4 or 5 years, maybe 6, 7 teenagers. And actually, it probably mostly was because it was before COVID. But anyways, I had to apologize to them. And they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You walked into a disaster, a pure disaster of a church culture." I was like, "And I'm sorry. Like, you walked into this place," and I was like, "I wouldn't want anything to do with it either, so I don't blame you." She kind of looked at me. It's like, I would have loved to. This place was a disaster. I mean, like, but what happens is we get really good at complaining about something. So what used to happen, or sometimes can happen in church cultures, I want this and this and this and this and this. Well, you can help run this and this and this. Well, no. Well, then it's never going to happen. Now, questions are a completely different ballgame. I'm all for it. Ask as many questions as humanly possible. I'm all for it. You want to do something? Let's roll. Let's go. They'll be completely honest with you. I don't listen to people complain about something, not wanting to do anything about it. I just don't. I was told a long time ago, if you have the vision, you have the ministry. In other words, if you want to get something like that, is God telling you to do something about it. So if you're really passionate about fixing something, whether it's in culture or society or in the church or in your home or whatever it may be, that means God's giving you something to do something with it. Don't turn it away. Don't shut it down. Embrace it. Run with it. Do something about it. Okay? Even if it's in here, you're like, well, we should do more of these. Awesome. I'll help you do it. Let's go. Seriously? Yeah. But I'm not going to be the one pushing 14. Like, I can't do it all. But I'll help you do whatever you want to get done. But slacktivism is a real thing. It's a real thing. And this is where leadership comes in. It's really hard. Because we have a lot of people yelling and screaming. You better change this. You better change this. Well, that superintendent better. You know what? It's hard. Because you know whatever decision you're going to make, you're going to take a group of people off. And honestly, I have so much, even if I don't agree with people's decision, if someone sticks to a decision, they're like, this is the way it is, I'm like, at least I'll respect them. Just me personally. I'll respect leadership. They make decisions, even if I don't like it, but just make a freaking decision. Golly. Ha. But we love to take stands that cost us nothing, don't we? We love to take stands that cost us nothing. Okay? This happens every week in our house. Every week we get into a conversation about something. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. Mostly with sports. Mostly with my boys. And here's what I say. Bet. You know what? I'm like, bet. Got $5? Bet. 100 push-ups? Bet. They're like, I don't want to do it. All right. Say whatever you want, but until you put your money where your mouth is, let's go, dude. I'd be rich. Granted, all the money they have would just come from me, and I'd probably just get it back again. You know what I mean? But like bet. You think they're going to do that? Bet. Let's see it. Come on, fork it over. Got $5? Right? 100 push-ups. I don't want to do 100. Okay. All the time. All the time. And never anything happens with it. Why? Because they're teenagers, and they're really good at slacktivism. But this is what we do. It's one thing when you're 14, who cares? But when you're 44, you better grow up. Because we got a lot of grown men that are 44 so often like they're 14, and it's freaking ridiculous. Sorry. It is. Wrong sermon. Oof. All right, here's another one I hear. We have to get worked up or we'll never do anything about it. We gotta get everybody in a frenzy. Everybody signs a petition. 1 Corinthians is really clear. Unless love is what is pushing you, it's wrong. Motives matter. Motives matter. Yes, there's always going to be disagreements, but motives matter. Dietrich Bonhoeffer says this: Jesus will not accept the common distinction between righteous indignation and unjustifiable anger. The disciple must be entirely innocent of anger because anger is an offense against God and his neighbor. Here's what I've come to realize. Anger seeks to punish while love seeks to redeem. And anger seeks retribution while love seeks redemption. God always is in favor of redemption, people. Always. Always. Yes, recognize injustices. Do something about it. Absolutely. But it has to be pushed. Our motives have to be right, and it has to be about loving people. Has to. Has to. It's how we're most effective. What are the best soldiers? The best soldiers are not motivated for their hate against the other side, because they don't know the other side. The best soldiers are motivated by loving the guy next to them. That's their motivation. It's loving the guy that is serving next to them. That's what motivates them. That's what changes everything. Anger never enhances anything. Love always makes it better. I am not blind to the fact that this is hard and difficult. Or I'm like, hey guys, I'm perfect at this. Heck no, I've studying some of this stuff is like, dang it, Gary, you've complained way too much. You know, I'm like, oh, oops, sorry, Jesus. Our hope is never in a political party. Our hope is in Jesus. And this does not mean we completely ignore moral issues. And we can talk about that too in the next couple of weeks as we walk through some of this stuff. We have combined political issues and moral issues, and let's make sure we continue to separate those things. There's moral issues. And you will find there's like morality, biblical issues. And you will greatly find that there's things that you're like, oh, okay. And nobody's ever going to, I shouldn't say nobody. I can't look at scripture and look at our two different political parties and go 100% here and 100%, like 0% there. Because there's stuff I'm like, oh gosh, yeah, that's not good. Because the Bible has to trump everything else. Has to. Has to. So here's the question. If Jesus is living in you, is he coming out of you? That's really what this centers around. You're like, well, I'm a Christian. And if you're not, cool. Because here's the deal. What a great way to figure out, here's the big stances on a lot of these things. Here's the way that Jesus is calling me to do it. Well, I don't want to live this way. That's fine. You can keep coming to church your whole life. I'm never going to kick you out. And nobody will. But here's just how Jesus says to do things. And we have a free will. We talked about that like a couple months ago. You don't have to serve Jesus if you don't want to. But Jesus is like, living for me is a radically different way than not living for me. There has to be a difference. Has to be. So if he's living in you, is he actually coming out of you? I don't know, because I'm not you. But we have a political, divided society, and it's because the church and Christianity has botched how we've handled this. Right? Part of it, like our voting record is ridiculous. You know, like the majority of Christians don't vote, which is just stupid. We're like we yell more than everybody else, but when it comes down to actually doing something about it, we're like, nope. That's dumb. But you got to change it. And I can't control everybody else. But I can't control what I say. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 9 says this. Do not be quickly provoked in your spirit, for anger resides in the lap of fools. Remember that, all you Vikings and Bears and Lions fans this year. Don't worry, we'll remember it in January when we lose too. Just so all you Packer fans, don't worry, you'll get yours. It's just the same way. And don't worry, somehow the Chiefs are still going to win. Why? I don't know. They always do. It's like when Brady was at the Patriots. It didn't matter what happened. You know they were going to win the Super Bowl. Anger resides in the lap of fools. Oof. You know how many people we see yelling at cash register, like somebody that works at a grocery store for the register not working right? Really? Like they control computers? Or just the dumbest of stuff? Don't be a fool. Don't be a fool. Listen, my DNA sucks for this. I am Greek and Polish with a bunch of other stuff. It is not in my DNA to be cool, calm, and collective. I don't need a microphone. I am perfectly capable of talking without a microphone in a room this size. Plenty good at it. And I wouldn't miss a beat. My throat wouldn't be sore. I wouldn't even notice a difference, to be honest with you. I'd be like, cool. I can be that loud. Easy. Easy. You mix that in with the Russian and the German, my kids are screwed. Anyways, that's hilarious. But I always tell them, dude, one part of your ancestors were killing the other part of your ancestors like 100 years ago. So good luck with that. Just, yeah, jokes inside our own house. But I have to watch myself so I don't become the fool that the Bible talks about. Because I can't use my DNA as an excuse. See, there's a lot of moral issues. But I have to bring these to myself and go, God, that has to drive me. There's a passion and a burden and a brokenness to go, God, if the school system is this bad, why aren't I on my knees praying about it every day? I bring my kids to the schools every day. How dare I not bring them and not pray for them? That's my fault. That's me being a fool. So the love for it has to bring this burden and this brokenness. So if you're super involved, Some people really love politics and some people really hate it. If you really love it, awesome. If you have a burden for it, awesome. But don't let it be motivated by anger. Let it be motivated and get on your knees and go, God, what do you want me to do about this? Whatever this is. See, God has called us to humble ourselves and pray, not rant and rave and throw the remote on social media or whatever it looks like. And when we are broken and burdened, then He can direct your next steps and go, this is what I want you to do. Then love, not anger, will be your motivation. A really good book, I should have put it up on the screen, I didn't. It's called Unoffendable by Brent Hannon. I ordered it on Kindle, and I got an old school copy coming too, because why the heck, why not? Whenever I read good books, even if I got them on Kindle, I just throw them in my office so I can give them away later anyways. But if you're looking at this and you're like, man, how do we live a life that can't be offended? Honestly, get the book. I'll send it to you, or at least a link to it. How do we handle political divisiveness? How do we handle things? People take us off with love and humility, trusting that God's going to take care of it, not with anger and resentment. And I'm telling you from experience, it's a lot easier for me to get angry and resentful. Just being honest. But that's not what God says to do. Is it a burden from God or is it anger that motivates you? Which one? Which one? And if we as American Christianity, my honest belief is if we let a burden from God to love other people on either side motivate us and drive us, we will see the gap being bridged in our country like never before. But I get it, that's a really big ask. That's a really big ask. But don't you dare let somebody else's anger and bitterness and hate draw you into that same crowd. That's what we do. Well, this person did this way. It doesn't make it right. And it doesn't make it effective. And it doesn't make it holy or righteous. Because at the end of the day, it's about what God says. It's not about what politics say. It's not about what this aisle says. It's not about what another pastor says, because I can get that too. Oh my gosh, you don't think pastors get political? Oh boy. Because you can draw a crowd getting political. It probably is one of the things that I've had cost me the most, as far as people leaving churches. Because they want me to be political, and I'm like, I ain't being political. In the sense of telling people what to do or how to vote or anything else. We'll talk morality issues, and we're going to continue to talk that. We always will. But you can figure the rest out for yourself, because you ain't dumb, you're an adult. Is it a burden from God that's motivating you, or is it anger? We can extrapolate this into our homes, into our relationships too. Don't just put this in political stuff. That's why whenever Paul talks, or ever you read in the Bible, it's a deeper issue. It's your soul. So is it anger? Is it retribution? Ha ha ha, my spouse did this. I can't wait to get them back. Oh boy, it's going to be a good one. For that, plenty. Plenty. That's anger, not love. Because love forgives. Love forgives. Again, hard. I know. Hard for me too. Let's pray. Lord, we thank you that we can talk about really hard things and, hard stuff. Lord, we thank you that we get to have a relationship with you that points things out to help us bring you back to you. You didn't just leave us with no direction. You cared so much about us. You gave us the entire book to help direct us and guide us through really hard, tough, difficult times. Lord, I pray for the people who hear this sermon and the people in this room today, that, Lord, we will begin to shift how we approach political